Hey guys, so in this video I'm talking about the potential trade that would send Garrett Crochet to the Boston Red Sox and what I would be willing to give up if I was head of the organization. Now, I know that there's a lot of stuff going on right now. We're going to kind of break that down. And so, without dragging this out too much, let's just get right into it. So, for those of you that don't know, Garrett Crochet is the hottest starting pitcher on the market right now. It seems almost definitely that he is going to be traded heading into the 2025 season, and he absolutely balled out in the 2024 season. So as we jump into his statistics here, we're going to talk about the good first, then we're going to play a little bit of devil's advocate before we jump into like trade scenarios. So the good. He had an awesome season here in the 2024 season. 4.1 WAR, 3.58 ERA, 146 innings pitched, 209 strikeouts is disgusting. And when you look at kind of like some of his underlying metrics here too, he pitched even better than that. So 3.58 ERA is good, but that's not like what you would consider ace material necessarily. But when you pop over here to his FIP, it's 2.69. So basically what this is fielding independent score kind of just gives you what his ERA potentially could have been if he had a normal defense behind him, if you took fielding out of the equation. So 2.69 is obviously significantly better than this. And if we're talking 2.69, that's a true ace. Even better than some of these numbers, when you look at his Baseball Savant stuff, this is all red. And if you guys haven't gone through Baseball Savant, maybe some of you guys are new to this, this shows like all of the in-depth metrics that people use to track like some of the best pitchers in all of baseball. And so like let's do this really quick. Scooball. So like Scooball's gonna win the Cy Young this year. This is what his Baseball Savant looks like. Like this is what you want from an elite pitcher. And so we'll pop back over here because we don't have to get into that too much, but this is like all red, and this is an extremely strong indicator that he's going to be able to maintain some of this moving forward. Now, let's jump into the devil's advocate portion just a little bit here now. So, his statistics are great, his underlying metrics are great, but there's a couple minor things here that are concerning. And for me, it kind of itches at my brain a little bit more than maybe some of you other guys. So he's a fastball pitcher, straight up. Like he's got, an okay off-speed pitch, but he's really just a four-seam cutter kind of guy. And that's fine because he throws 98 miles an hour. Now, that's good, but if he has any sort of injury with his elbow again, which he's already had Tommy John surgery in the past, he could potentially lose velocity and like it could be kind of a disaster. Now, you can't go into trade negotiations necessarily thinking that because any pitcher can kind of get hurt, and Chris Sale got hurt a bunch, but he did great when he was healthy, and so I think Crochet potentially could be in that same type of line, but not having like a secondary pitch is something that hopefully they can develop and work on him a little bit more because it'd be great if you could develop this sweeper a little bit better and get a better changeup to kind of offset some of that fastball instead of just overpowering batters. Now, overpowering batters is great. Especially when the Red Sox defense is so bad. Incompetent is the word that comes to mind when I think of their defense. So if you can strike out a lot of batters and you can avoid the defense altogether, it's just going to make your numbers better and it's going to improve the entire team overall. Now, back to devil's advocate a little bit more. He has never been a starting pitcher before this season, at least not at the major league level, but that is a span of like 4 years. So for those of you guys that don't know, also, Garrett Crochet was drafted in the first round, 11th overall in the 2020 draft, and he skipped the minors altogether. Didn't do anything in the minors, and he got promoted because they were trying to make a playoff run in 2020. And he did amazing. He did great. And then he came in 2021 back, and he was an awesome reliever again. Like these are really strong numbers, especially for a 2022 for a 22-year-old who has never pitched in professional baseball before. Super impressive. Now, he gets Tommy John surgery, misses most of the next 2 seasons, comes back, they make him a starter, and he does what he does. This is the biggest concern for me, is the 146 innings pitched. Now, they didn't prevent him from pitching 32 games all season long. Sorry, my son's being a little babbly here. But they did limit his innings. Like, if you look at these last couple starts of the year, 4 innings, 4 innings, 4 innings, 2 innings, 3.1 innings. And, most of these starts aren't because, like, he got shelved. Like, in this one, he did a little bit against the Red Sox, but most of them are just because they were limiting his pitches. And so if you could say that he's going to give you 180 to 200 innings per season, that's where everything starts to kind of piece its way together. But can you really say that? It's hard to say. It really is difficult. And I think that that's going to kind of play into these negotiations a little bit more as to who's willing to give up what pieces. So now that we've kind of talked about all of the things with Garrett Crochet, what would I be willing to give up and what do I think it's going to take to actually be able to get Crochet? So popping over to Sox prospects right now, they are the leading source in Red Sox prospects. This is what they do. They actually go out and scout everybody, and so they genuinely know what they're doing. We obviously have the big four in Roman Anthony, Marcelo Meyer, Christian Campbell, and Kyle Teal. Now, I think that the White Sox are probably going to insist on one of these guys being included. But if I am dealing with the White Sox, I don't want to give up any of these guys. I do think that there is a way to be able to do this that works out for both sides. So let's take a look at this article really quick. This will kind of help us along the way, but the White Sox are targeting position players in the Garrett Crochet talks. And so Chris Getz, he is the head of the White Sox organization right now, and he says, we are focusing on position player return. That's our primary focus in any trade talks. The right players have to be there. We can't force anything. We certainly need to improve our offense. That is very clear. And so the article kind of goes on to just talk about how terrible of an offense that they had. And I think this is a little bit of an interesting comment because the White Sox, they lost like, 122 games this last season. They have a lot more problems than just their offense. It's top to bottom organization failure right now to be able to produce at the major league level. And even their minor league system isn't amazing. They've got some pieces, but it's not great. And so it's interesting that they're saying that they're trying to focus on position players right now, because if I was in charge of them, I would want prospects back. I'd want some of those guys that are in the mid to, upper minors, but like top to bottom, you need to kind of fix this team. And you don't necessarily want guys that are going to be at the major league level right now. Maybe you can sign some cheaper pieces to like be stopgaps. But it is interesting that it seems like that they're kind of trying to replace on their current roster. And so with that in mind, if they are trying to replace on their current roster, maybe you don't need to include all of these guys if you're willing to include the right pieces that are major league ready. Now, one of the names that's getting floated around, and I think this is totally ridiculous, is Tristan Casas getting moved over there. No, it's just not going to happen. Casas is like the future of the Red Sox at first base. We don't really have another first baseman that's going to be there. I'm not even going to kind of like entertain that, but Casas is not going to be a part of this. And so when you're looking at like the current Red Sox roster and like the future Red Sox roster, like that's where I think it really starts to get interesting as to which pieces could be moved and which pieces need to be moved. I showed this in my last video, but this is kind of what the 26-man roster for opening day looks like in the 2025 season. There's some pieces that you can argue, but for the most part, this is kind of what it looks like. Now, this is what the opening day lineup sort of looks like right now. But when you look at the 2025 opening day lineup and then you bring up the potential for a 2026 opening day lineup, this is where you start to look at the pieces that really need to be moved. All of the guys that are in red, these are guys that I theoretically am saying should be in the starting lineup. And when you see this already, and the Red Sox are still going to have to add another piece. Don't forget that. There's going to be a right-handed bat that's going to come in here one way or another. There are already 10 position players that probably should be in the opening day lineup, the everyday lineup. And, we have Jarren Duran, Christian Campbell probably should be in the opening day lineup by 26. And then we have Anthony, Teal, Meyer. All of those guys are going to be in the big leagues, barring any injury this next season. And by 2026, they should be starting every day. These aren't prospects that you want to be able to have on your bench. These are guys that need to be able to be given the opportunity to start every single day. Maybe the exception of Teal, he might be in a tandem with Connor Wong, but regardless, these are guys that should be starting every single day. So when you have that in mind, you got to get rid of some of these pieces. You got to get rid of somebody in here. And obviously, the one that I kind of have highlighted already is Wilyer Abreu. And I do think that he has quite a bit of value on the market right now. Now, is he enough to get Garrett Crochet? No, definitely not. But is he somebody that could supplement like a top 25 prospect? Yeah, I think that's possible. So if Abreu is the head of your package, what else has to go along with him? If you remember with the article that I was just showing you guys, they are looking for position players. If you put Wilyer Abreu in that lineup, he's easily like the best. This is atrocious, some of these numbers here. OPS plus, nobody in their starting lineup had an OPS plus of over 95. And that was Andrew Benintendi. And Andrew Benintendi was terrible at the beginning of last season. So after Willie Abreu, I think you need another secondary piece on the major league roster, because if you're going to go the major league route with this without going prospects, you need another position player. And the guy that I kind of have in mind for this is David Hamilton. Now, the reason that I want David Hamilton in this deal is, again, he's just one of those players that's like blocked when it comes to the future. And David Hamilton, I think, and I mentioned this in my last video, I think he's earned the right to be the de facto starting second baseman heading into the next season. But he's not going to win that position over Christian Campbell or Marcelo Meyer. I don't think he's going to do that by the end of that season, especially heading into 2026. So when you look at David Hamilton here, I was actually pretty impressed with what he did this year. His defense at shortstop was very bad, but he was okay at second base, and the offense was never better than when you had David Hamilton, Jarren Duran, and Cedar Rafaela batting back to back to back. And while I totally love that, and that's the reason that I'm giving for him being the starting second baseman this next season, what you're going to get out of Christian Campbell is going to be very similar. And Christian Campbell, I would rather him be batting second than David Hamilton batting second or eighth. And I do think Campbell is going to be like a prototypical number 2 type hitter potentially. And so David Hamilton, if we include him in that deal, I think those are the 2 big pieces that you have as like the major league ready talent. And I think you're selling high on Hamilton as well. 2.6 WAR. I mean, we go back over to the White Sox really quick. Nobody did that this year. Nobody. And so even if he just replicates what he did this season, which, you know, it's entirely possible. Obviously, he just did it. He's still going to be like the best player, one of the best players on the White Sox offensively heading into the following year. And so I think that he's an interesting piece. I think he's a redundant piece. And so I add him into this trade. And I think there is a little bit of value when it comes to him. Maybe not like top 100 prospect level, but I would consider him to be like a 150-ish type prospect potentially, especially when he's got, you know, another 5 years of control, just like Willie Abreu does. And so the rest of this trade, we're going to go back over to Sox prospects really quick. You look at this bottom of this list. Now, who are the guys that you want to be able to move on from? I think that the highest one that I would be okay with going is Franklin Arias. He is a top 100 prospect right now. I think he's ranked number 94, something in that range, the mid 90s, but he's really young. And so he's somebody who potentially, if they trade for him now, 3-4 years down the road, he's in that next window of contention for the White Sox, hopefully. And so Franklin Arias is a possibility. Miguel Blaise, I would not want to trade him, to be honest. I think that he had a very down year, and I think that this guy is a top 100, top 50, top 20 prospect potentially, even in the next year or two. He's just been so hurt the past couple years, so I wouldn't really want to get rid of him. Franklin Arias, I'd be okay with. Mydroth, I don't want to move him either. Cespedes, we could. I think Sandlin's a possibility. You know, Mikey Romero, Yostinson Garcia. These are the guys that I think that people would be interested in. And the farm system is so deep right now that even though, you know, he's sitting at number 14, number 15 prospect in our system, these guys are going to be top 10 prospects in the White Sox system if we trade them, just because we've got such a deep farm system. And so when you like pull up like the final trades for what I would want to do for this is kind of where I get to. We trade Willie Abreu, David Hamilton, Yostinson Garcia, and Mikey Romero to the White Sox, and we receive Garrett Crochet. I think that this is a very fair trade. Now that's the key word here. It's a fair trade. He is the most coveted starting pitcher on the market right now. And so fair is probably not going to get it done. There might need to be a little bit of an overpay. Now, that's where like the hesitation that I mentioned earlier in the video kind of steps into play. Who hesitates first? Is it going to be the buyers who are going to all balk and be like, listen, I don't trust this one season out of Crochet. We can't say that he's going to be an ace. We're paying for an ace. And so we're not going to give up what you want. And so we're going to kind of pull back. And that's where like these fair type of trades kind of come into play. If you want to talk like overpay, you know, we could basically be like Willie Abreu, and then you throw in, you know, Marcelo Meyer, and then maybe like even one more of these pieces. And that's an overpay. And that's a possibility too. I think that if they're going to trade any of the big four, it's going to be Meyer. But this is what I would want to do. And I think that you can maybe sub out like Mikey Romero for Franklin Arias, and I'd still be okay with that. Maybe you can sub in like David Sandlin. He's a really good starting pitching prospect. He's probably like one of the better pitching prospects in the system, kind of with like Richard Fitz in the upper minors. Um, but I think that that's kind of where I'd be willing to go right now. Like, I don't think that I want to go too much further than that, just because I am concerned about the future ability of him to be a number one, and I am concerned about the health when it kind of comes to it. He's not a sure thing. He really isn't. And while he's shown all of the potential to be one of the best pitchers in baseball, and he was one of the best pitchers in baseball this last season, I'm just not sure. Anyway, before I wrap up this video, there's one more trade possibility that I think could happen. I think it's less likely, but it could happen with the White Sox, and that's with the Red Sox receiving Garrett Crochet and receiving Luis Robert. Now, if that happens, the Red Sox are absolutely going to have to trade some big names, and I think that's going to start with Roman Anthony. Now, again, Roman Anthony, if they traded him, it clears up some of the congestion that we see in this. You know, we get rid of Anthony here, we swap him out with Luis Robert, and that kind of balances out a little bit better because, you know, Luis Robert is right-handed, which helps the lineup quite a bit also. And then, you know, we still probably are trading Abreu along with Roman Anthony, so they get two big outfield pieces. And then on top of that, you're still probably going to have to include like a David Sandlin, a Franklin Arias, a Yostinson Garcia, one of those guys that's like a prospect that you feel good about, but you're not wanting to deal either, but you're going to have to deal. It's a massive trade. It would probably include 4 or 5 pieces, but it would start with Roman Anthony, and it would start with Wilyer Abreu, and then it would work down from there. And if that's a possibility, I'm not necessarily saying that I wouldn't do it, because it does fix some things here, but I'm so high on Roman Anthony. He's the #1 prospect in baseball, and it's just a little bit concerning when you trade a guy like that, you know? You never know. But anyway, guys, thank you for tuning into this video. Hopefully this was informative. You guys enjoyed this type of thing. This is the second type of vlog style video that I've done this off season. If you guys like this, please comment. I implore you to comment. There was such great discussion on the last one. I respond to all of your guys' comments, and thank you guys for making it this far in the video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you next time. Bye.